Picture the coldest building you have ever stood inside. Now make the walls 9 feet thick, made of stone that has never once in 100 years been warm to the touch. Add the smell of tallow smoke and wet wool, the sound of 40 people breathing in the dark around you, and a wind that comes through the window slits like a blade, because glass is a luxury even kings ration. That's a royal castle in the year 1247, the most powerful address in the kingdom. Also, functionally, a very expensive cave. A place where you could wear a crown worth more than a village in the morning and still go to bed with chilblains cracking the skin of your fingers by night. We're going back there tonight. Not as tourists admiring the tapestries. We're living it. One day, one person. And here's the twist. Tonight, you're not the servant. You're not the apprentice. Not the kitchen girl. Not the boy hauling water. Tonight, you're the queen. The woman at the very top of the entire pyramid. And by the end of this night, you're going to understand something strange. The woman at the top of the pyramid is also, in a very real way, its most watched prisoner. So, I make these history stories, and honestly, I still have no idea if anyone actually sleeps to them, or if you're all just out there in the dark, wide awake, quietly delighted to hear about medieval underwear and the politics of who gets to hand a queen her comb. Either way, subscribe if you want. Get comfortable. Here we go. You have been awake for an hour and you have not yet been permitted to get out of bed. That's the first thing you need to understand about being a queen. Your body is not entirely your own. It belongs in various legal and spiritual portions to God, to the king, to the kingdom, and to a household of roughly 200 people whose employment depends on you needing things. If you got up by yourself, dressed by yourself, poured your own water, you would not be efficient. You would be insulting approximately 11 people, 3 of whom are the daughters of earls, and their fathers would hear of it by Friday. So you lie still in the great bed, and you wait. The bed itself is the warmest place you will occupy all day, and you know it, which makes leaving it a small daily grief. The mattress under you is stuffed with down over a base of straw, layered on ropes that creak when you shift your weight. The ropes have to be tightened every few weeks, or the whole bed sags like a hammock. That's where we get the phrase sleep tight. That's already a real concern in 1247. Above you hangs a canopy of heavy wool, and around the bed curtains drawn closed at night, and not for beauty. The curtains are insulation. They trap the heat of your own body in the body of Alice, your youngest lady, who sleeps on a truckle bed pulled out at your feet, because a queen does not sleep in a room alone. Ever. Not once in her life. Privacy is a luxury nobody at your level can afford. You heard that right. Nobody at your level. The scullery boy sleeping in the kitchen ash has more moments truly alone than you do. Outside the bed curtains, you can hear the room waking. The scrape of the shutter bar being lifted. The grey light won't be much. The windows are slit of horn panes. Thin sheets of animal horn scrape translucent. Because glass in this tower broke 2 winters ago, and the glazier from Lincoln wants 4 shillings, and 4 shillings is a labourer's wages for a month, and even queens, you've learned, argue about repair bills. There's the crack and spit of the fire being rebuilt on last night's embers, the soft rhythm of Alice's broom over the rushes on the floor, dried stalk strewn ankle deep, mixed with wormwood and dried meadow sweet to fight the smell. The rushes are 3 weeks old. You can tell. Under the meadow sweet there is a sweetish, tired odour of old floor, spilled wine, dog and smoke. And beneath all of it, faintly, the smell of the garderobe, the toilet shaft built into the thickness of the wall, which drops 40 feet down the outside of the tower into the moat. On a still morning, the moat answers back, and underneath everything, there is you. You bathed 9 days ago, a real bath, the great wooden tub lined with linen sheets, water-heated kettle by kettle, and hauled up 2 spiral staircases by boys whose shoulders you have watched change shape over the years from exactly this work. Between baths there is the ewer and the cloth, face and hands, morning and night. So you are, by the standards of your world, an exceptionally clean woman. By the standards of yours, listening to this, you're a person 9 days from her last shower, wearing wool. The curtain rings slide back with a sound like small bells. Good morrow, my lady. Matilda, senior lady of your chamber, widow of a baron, 41 years old, a face like a well-kept ledger. She has served you for 11 years. You do not entirely like her. You trust her with your life. At this level, those are different things, and you learned to separate them a long time ago. The air outside the curtains hits your face and you feel your skin tighten. Your breath shows. Inside the castle, in your own bedchamber, in April. Now the work begins, and the work is you. You sit up, and hands are already there, Alice with the fur-lined nightrobe held open. Because between the bed and the fire there is a distance of 9 feet, and a queen does not cross 9 feet of cold air in her shift. Your feet find the rushes. The stalks are cool and slightly damp and they crackle. Alice kneels and works soft leather slippers onto your feet, and her hands are cold, and you feel every fingertip. You stand at the basin. Matilda pours. The water comes down over your wrists in a rope of cold that makes the bones ache, and you wash your face, your neck, behind your ears, and the linen towel is rough enough to leave your cheeks pink, which is convenient, because pink cheeks read as health, and health, in a queen, is a political statement. People watch your face the way merchants watch the sky. If the queen looks pale, the queen may be ill. If the queen is ill, the succession is a question. If the succession is a question, men start writing letters. Your complexion, in a very direct way, is a matter of state. Then the dressing. And when I say dressing, I need you to understand what that means in 1247. This is not putting on clothes. This is being built layer by layer by other people's hands into a public object. First, the shift. Fine linen, washed and beaten and sun-bleached so many times it feels like paper worn soft. It goes over your head and falls to your ankles, and for 1 second the linen is cold as pond water against your bare back, and then your body starts the slow work of warming it. Then wool stockings, tied above the knee with woven garters, Alice's fingers quick at the knots. Then the first gown, and here is where the wait begins. Wool, dyed a deep blue-green, and dye is money. That colour took 3 separate dye baths in Flanders, and the gown itself weighs as much as a healthy cat. It settles onto your shoulders and you feel your posture change to carry it. Then the surcoat over that, trimmed in squirrel fur, another cat's worth of weight. A belt of woven silk with a silver buckle, and hanging from the belt, the things a queen actually uses, a small knife in a sheath, a ring of keys, and a purse containing not money, you almost never touch money, but seals. Wax seals are your signature, your password, your legal existence. Lose your seal and someone can spend in your name, promise in your name, betray in your name. Then the hair. Sit still. Matilda's comb is boxwood, its teeth worn smooth by years, and she works it through from the ends up, patient, and you feel each small tug at your scalp like a series of tiny arguments. Your hair has not been cut since childhood. Braided, it reaches past your waist. It is braided now, wound, pinned, and then covered completely, first with a barbette, a band of linen passing under your chin, then the fillet, a stiff linen circle like a low crown, then the veil. A married woman's hair belongs to her husband and to God, in roughly that order of enforcement, and no one else will see it today. By the time Matilda's hands stop moving, your head carries its own architecture. You feel the linen press under your jaw when you speak. You will feel it all day. By evening there will be a red line under your chin like the mark of a very soft rope. Total time, most of an hour. Total layers, 7. Total weight of what you're now wearing, somewhere near 15 pounds. You will wear it up and down spiral staircases, through unheated corridors, onto your knees on stone and up again, roughly 200 times, until dark. And you have not yet eaten, because before food comes God, and God is waiting at the bottom of 93 cold steps. The staircase spirals down clockwise, which is not decoration, it's weaponry. A defender backing up these stairs has his sword arm free against the open centre. An attacker climbing has his cramped against the wall. You live inside a machine for killing people, softened with tapestries. The steps are worn into shallow scoops by 100 years of feet, and each one is a slightly different height, deliberately, so that a running man in the dark will stumble. You know their rhythm the way you know a song. Short, short, long, the cracked one, the one that tips. Your hand trails the central pillar as you descend, and the stone is cold and faintly greasy from 10,000 palms, and your skirts have to be gathered in your other fist, or they will kill you as efficiently as any attacker, and this too is why a queen's hands are never free. One for the stone, one for the skirts. Servants exist because you have no hands left. The chapel is small, and it is honest about the cold, in a way the rest of the castle pretends not to be. Your breath hangs in front of the candle flames. The floor before your prie-dieu has a cushion, one cushion, a concession, and you kneel onto it and feel the stone through it anyway, a flat pressure that starts as coolness and becomes, over the half hour of the office of prime, a slow ache that climbs from kneecap to hip. The priest's Latin moves like water over gravel. You know every word, and you mean most of them. You pray for the king, who is 11 days' ride away, holding a council you were not asked to attend. You pray for your son, 6 years old, being raised in another castle entirely, because royal children are raised at a distance the way forests are managed in separate plantations, so that one fire cannot take them all. You have seen him twice since Christmas. You pray for the soul of your daughter, who lived 9 days last summer, and you keep your face exactly still while you do it, because Matilda is 2 feet behind you, and Matilda's memory is a ledger, and grief, in a queen, is information, and information travels. You cross yourself. Your knees crack when you rise, both of them audibly, and you're 29 years old. Alice pretends not to hear. You pretend not to notice her pretending. This is most of court life, if you want the honest summary. A very expensive agreement about what everyone will pretend not to notice. Breakfast is not a meal. Breakfast is barely a rumour. A queen breaks her fast standing, or nearly so, in her chamber. A piece of yesterday's white bread, wheat, the pale kind, the kind 95% of the kingdom will never taste, because they eat rye and barley, dense and dark, and the whiteness of your bread is, like your complexion, a statement. A little cheese. Ale. Small ale. Brewed weak. drunk by everyone from infancy, because water is a gamble, and everyone knows someone who lost. The ale is faintly sweet and faintly sour and tastes of the oak of the barrel, and you drink it from a silver-rimmed cup of maple wood, a mazer, its bottom engraved with a Latin motto you stopped reading years ago. The bread is slightly stale, it is always slightly stale. Fresh bread is baked by mid-morning, a queen eats at dawn. Therefore a queen, the richest woman in the kingdom, eats yesterday's bread every single morning of her life, and there is no one to complain to because the system is not broken. The system simply does not consider your preferences to be one of its inputs. Keep that thought. It is the theme of your entire day. And now, before the sun has properly cleared the eastern wall, comes the part of queenship no ballad ever mentions, the accounts. They come to you in the small chamber off your bedchamber, the one with the table and the good window and the iron-banded chests. Your clerk, Master Simon, a narrow man with ink ground so deep into the creases of his right hand that no bath will ever get it out, and your steward, and between them the rolls, parchment sewn end to end and wound into cylinders as thick as your arm. Your household, the Queen's household, separate from the King's, is its own small country. You have your own lands, scattered across 9 counties, given to you at marriage as dower. Their rents pay for everything you are, the wool on your back, the wax in the chapel, the wages of 200 souls, the oats of 60 horses. And this country of yours does not run itself. It runs because one woman sits at a table every morning while a clerk reads numbers at her, and that woman catches the errors. You'd better believe you catch the errors. The manor at Weston, Simon reads, the parchment crackling as he unrolls it, a dry sound like fire that gives no heat, renders 40 shillings at Michaelmas, and claims allowance of 6 shillings 8 pence for repair of the mill wheel. You hold out your hand. He gives you the roll. The parchment is stiff and smells of the animal it used to be, faintly of chalk, faintly of Simon. You read. This is unusual, by the way, and you know it's unusual. You read Latin and French, and you can wrestle the numbers yourself because your mother, God keep her, made you sit with her own clerks from the age of 8, saying a woman who cannot read her own accounts will be robbed with her own pen. Half the barons of this kingdom cannot do what you're doing right now. They think it beneath them. They are, one comfortable decade at a time, being eaten alive by their own stewards, and they will die confused about where the money went. The mill wheel at Weston was repaired 2 years ago, you say. Trinity term, 5 shillings, and I recall it because the carpenter drowned that same autumn, and his widow petitioned me for the balance of his fee. Wheels do not fail in 2 years. Either the carpenter's work was bad, in which case the fault lies with the reeve who hired him, or the wheel is fine, and the reeve is charging me for timber that is currently holding up his own barn. Simon does not smile. Simon has never smiled, but he makes a small mark in the margin, a hooked line like a hawk's beak, and you know that Mark and the reeve of Weston, 90 miles away, sunning himself this very moment in his doorway, does not yet know that his comfortable arrangement just died at a table he has never seen, killed by a woman he has met once. 6 shillings and 8 pence, half a mark. To you, an hour of candle wax. But that difference, multiplied across 9 counties and 200 officials, every one of them testing you gently, constantly, the way water tests a roof, is the difference between a queen who commands and a queen who is managed. Your grandmother told you that a great household leaks from 1,000 holes. and the lady's eye is the only pitch that seals them. She ruled her lands for 40 years. You believed her then. You know it now. In your hands, in the specific fatigue of parchment after parchment, in the ache that sets up camp between your shoulder blades before the morning is half done. 2 hours of this, rents and liveries. A dispute over pasture between two of your manors that has been running longer than you've been alive. Wages for the laundress who is owed for a quarter and has asked very humbly, through 3 intermediaries, whether she might be paid, and you feel your face go hot, because a queen who does not pay her laundress is a joke told in every washhouse in the county within a month, and you order it settled today in coin, with a shilling over for the shame of the asking, and wine, always wine. Your household drinks its way through wine at a rate that would frighten a modern reader, but understand, wine is not indulgence here. Wine is infrastructure. Wine is what you set before every guest whose goodwill you will ever need, and the new shipment from Gascony is late. And if it is late because of storms, that is God's business. But if it is late because your buyer in Bristol has sold your allocation to a fatter purse, that is your business, and you dictate a letter to him now, and the letter is a small masterpiece of the Queen's style, which you have spent 11 years perfecting. 2 sentences of warmth, 1 sentence of scripture, and 1 sentence that mentions, in passing, entirely without threat, that his lease on the key is held from your honour of Bristol, and falls due for renewal at Easter. You seal it yourself. The wax is the colour of dried blood and smells like honey when it melts, and you press your seal into it and feel the soft resistance give, and there you are in miniature. A woman crowned, standing, a bird on her wrist, your legal self, harder than your real one, and considerably more durable. Your right hand aches at the base of the thumb from the morning's work. You rub it with your left under the table, where no one can see, because nothing about you is allowed to hurt in public. Simon rolls the parchments. The morning is gone, and down below in the great courtyard you can already hear them gathering. The petitioners, the line of people who have walked, some of them, for a week, to stand in the mud and wait for the only person in the kingdom who might listen. Because that, more than the crown, more than the gowns, is what a queen is for. Before the petitioners, the walk, and the walk is its own education. To get from your tower to the great hall you cross the inner courtyard, and the courtyard at mid-morning is the whole kingdom compressed into a square of trampled mud 80 feet across. Understand what a castle actually is, not a palace. A castle is a fortress, a farm, a barracks, a law court, a warehouse, a stable, a prison, and a small town, all locked inside one wall, all of it functioning at once, all of it loud. The smith's hammer sets the pulse, iron on iron, a flat ringing that you feel in your back teeth, and under it the wheeze of his bellows like some huge animal breathing. The smoke of his forge is different from wood smoke, sharper, metallic. It sits at the back of the throat. Chickens everywhere, running from a kitchen boy. 2 mastiffs the size of calves asleep against the sunny wall, twitching. A cart of firewood coming through the gate, its axle shrieking for grease, and the carter cursing his ox with real creativity until he sees you, at which point his vocabulary collapses into a bow so deep his hat touches the mud. The kitchen block breathes out its own weather, wood smoke, roasting fat, the green smell of chopped leeks, and under it, from the yard behind where they're slaughtering for tonight, a thick, warm, mineral smell you've known since childhood, and have never once gotten used to. And here is what you notice, what you cannot stop noticing, because it is the water you swim in. Everything stops as you pass, not dramatically, a half beat. The hammer finishes its stroke and waits. The laundress straightens from her tub, hands dripping, and bobs. The boys stop mid-chase. 200 pairs of eyes touch you and drop, touch you and drop. A ripple of attention moving across the courtyard at exactly your walking speed, and you keep your pace even and your chin level and your face arranged in the expression you learned at 15, mild, attentive, unreadable, because every one of those glances is taking a reading. Is the Queen well? Is the Queen troubled? Did the Queen look at the messenger who rode in at dawn? Who did the Queen smile at? You're the most public object in this castle. A church bell gets more solitude. Your shoes are thin leather. You feel every cobble, every ridge of frozen and thawed mud, and the cold of the ground comes up through the soles like a fact that will not be argued with. 15 pounds of wool and fur on your shoulders and cold feet regardless. That is the aristocratic condition in one sentence. The great hall swallows you in dimness and smoke. 60 feet long, 30 wide, the roof beams lost in a brown haze overhead, because the fire burns in an open hearth in the centre of the floor, and the smoke finds its way out, eventually mostly through a louver in the roof. Everything in this room, the hangings, the wood, the people, is lightly cured, like ham. You smell it in your veil at night. Generations from now, they will build chimneys into the walls and change the shape of rooms, of houses, of privacy itself. Not yet. In 1247, warmth and smoke are married, and you cannot invite one without the other. They have set your chair on the dais, not the throne. The throne travels with the king, but a high-backed chair with a cushion and a footboard, raised 2 steps above the floor, and those 2 steps are the whole constitution of the realm rendered in carpentry. And then the doors open, and they come in. The petitioners come in order of rank, because everything in your world comes in order of rank. But what strikes you every time, what has struck you for 11 years, is the sound they make. Almost none. 40, 50 people shuffling into a stone hall nearly silently, wet wool and held breath. The small knock of a walking stick, a baby fussing and being hushed against a shoulder. People who have walked 4 days rehearsing their 30 seconds. Here is why they come to you, and not to the king, and you must understand this, because it is the secret architecture of queenship. The king is justice. The king is the sword. But the sword, by definition, cannot show mercy without looking weak. A king who softens is a king inviting the next rebellion. So the machine has a second component, built in, ancient, understood by everyone. The queen intercedes. The queen may kneel to the king publicly and ask him to soften what cannot be softened, and the king may grant it, and no one loses. His justice stays hard. His mercy arrives wearing your face. You are, formally and functionally, the kingdom's official channel for pity. It is the realest power you have, and it works precisely because you have almost no other kind. The first is a widow from one of your own manors, and she cannot stop shaking. Her husband held 4 acres of you. He is dead since Candlemas. The custom of the manor demands a heriot, a death duty. The best beast of the household goes to the lord. Her best beast is her only cow. Her reeve, correct to the letter, has claimed it. She has 3 children. She has walked, you will learn, 2.5 days. She tries to kneel and gets tangled in her skirt, and a man beside her catches her elbow, and she says her piece to the floor in a dialect so thick your steward leans in to translate. and the whole of it amounts to, "The law says you may take my cow, and if you take my cow, my children will not see spring. The reeve is right. That is what makes it worth stopping on. The reeve has done nothing wrong. The custom is the custom, written down before your grandmother was born. If you waive the heriot for one widow, you have told 40 manors that the custom bends, and next year it will not be one cow. It will be 100 quiet tests of exactly how far. You feel the trap of it, the same trap as the mill wheel, the same trap as everything. The system holds because it does not bend, and directly in front of you is a human being being crushed by the holding. So you do what queens do. You do not break the rule, you buy it. The custom stands, you say, and you watch her go grey. The heriot is owed and shall be paid. A beat. And it is our pleasure, for the soul of our daughter, to gift to this woman one cow from our own herd at that manor of equal worth, and to remit her rent until Michaelmas. The hall takes a breath. The custom is intact. The reeve is upheld. The children eat. The cost to you is 1 cow and a half year's rent on 4 acres, less than the embroidery on the sleeve you paid for it last month. And the story of it will walk home with every person in this hall and spread through 9 counties by summer. The queen who would not break the law and would not let it kill a widow either. And that story is worth more to you than 100 cows, and you know that too, and knowing it does not make the widow's face, when the colour comes back into it, any less real. Both things are true at once. You gave up expecting your motives to come in single file a long time ago. She is weeping now, and being steered away by the elbow, and she keeps turning back to look at you. And you hold her eye for 1 second and give her the small nod, and then the next petitioner is already being called, because there are 40 more, and mercy in this hall runs on a schedule. A man whose neighbour moved a boundary stone, 2 sisters at war over a dead father's croft, a parish priest threadbare and furious, whose tithe barn roof fell in, and whose patron will not pay, a franklin who wants his son taken into your household, and the son stands there, 14, scrubbed raw, ears burning, and you remember your own son, and ask the boy one question. Can he read? And he says to his father's visible horror, "No, my lady, but I lie well." And the hall laughs, actually laughs, and you laugh, and you take him. Honesty about dishonesty, at 14, in front of a queen. That is a boy who understands courts. He will go far or hang. In your experience, the 2 paths run side by side for years before they split. An hour and a half. Your voice is beginning to dry. The cushion under you has stopped being a cushion. The chair has found your spine through it, 1 hard rail, exactly where the accounts already left their ache this morning, and you shift your weight by 1/2 an inch, invisibly, redistributing pain the way you redistribute everything else, quietly, and without letting the line of your shoulders change, because 40 people are watching the line of your shoulders, and the line of your shoulders is the weather report of the realm. And then, near the end of the line, a man you have been aware of since he entered, the way you are aware of a draft, a messenger, road mud to the thigh, and the mud is the pale clay of the South Road, and he is not asked to speak, which is how you know his message is not for the hall. He waits. You finish the line, every petitioner full attention, because the day you visibly hurry past the poor to reach the political is the day you become a different queen. But some part of you has already left the dais, is already across the hall, is already reading whatever is under the wax in that man's satchel. The last petitioner bows out. You rise, knees flat with pins and needles under 15 pounds of wool, and you do not stumble, because you planted your feet 30 seconds ago in preparation. Another skill no one teaches and every queen learns. You say to the messenger mildly, as if he were an afterthought, attend us above. And your heart, under the surcoat, under the gown, under the shift, where absolutely no one can see it, has picked up its pace like a dog that heard a footstep on the road it does not know. The letter is from your husband's chamberlain, not from your husband. Note that. You noted it before the seal was cold in your hand. You read it standing by the window in the small chamber, angled so the light falls across the parchment and your face falls into shadow, an old habit, a good one. Matilda is present because Matilda is always present, and she's doing needlework by the fire with the particular stillness of a woman recording everything. The words are courteous. The words are always courteous. You could paper the walls of this castle with the courtesy you have received in writing. Underneath the courtesy, the content is this. The king's counsel has gone badly. The king needs money again for the war in the south, again, and the barons have refused him, again, and refused him in language that was this time not entirely careful. And so the king's officers are looking everywhere for revenue that does not require the baron's consent, and someone at that council, the letter does not say who, the letter does not need to say who, you can see his face as clearly as if he were in the room, has suggested to the king that the queen's dower lands are very rich and very widely scattered, and perhaps not as well supervised as they might be, and there would be no dishonour to the queen, none at all, if the king's own escheators were to survey them. For her protection, for the improvement of her revenues, you read it twice. Your face does nothing. Inside, one cold drop of understanding slides all the way down your spine. Because here is what that paragraph actually means, translated out of Chamberlain into truth. Your lands are the only thing in this world that is yours. Not your body, we established that at dawn. Not your children, raised at a distance by council-appointed households. Not your time, spent since sunrise in the service of everyone in the kingdom but yourself. The lands, the rents, the 200 people whose bread comes from your seal, and answer to you, and to no one else. That is the entire physical foundation of everything you are beyond a wife with a crown on. And the letter is telling you, gently, courteously, between the scripture quotes, that a man at court is trying to slide his fingers under that foundation, using the king's need as a crowbar, and that if the king's officers once enter your lands to survey them, they will never fully leave. That is how it always goes. First the survey, then the shared administration. Then one morning 10 years from now, you are a pensioner in your own household, signing what is put in front of you, and everyone is still calling you your grace. It has happened to queens before. You can name 3 without pausing to think. One of them is still alive up north, in a very comfortable convent she did not choose, and she was cleverer than you. So, that is the day now. Everything before this moment, the accounts, the widow, the boy who lies well, that was the ordinary weight, the weight you were built to carry. This is the other kind. This is the kind that arrives on a mud-splashed horse while you're being merciful, and does not care that you are tired, and starts the clock the moment the wax cracks. And here is the thing no ballad will ever tell you about a queen in trouble. There is nothing dramatic she can do. You cannot rage. Rage from a woman is evidence. You cannot ride south and confront the king. A queen arriving uninvited at a council is a scandal, and scandal is exactly the crowbar your enemy is looking for. You cannot even write to your husband directly about it yet, because you do not know what he has already half agreed to, and a letter that defends your lands before anyone has openly moved against them tells the whole court that you are frightened, and frightened at court smells like blood in water. What you can do is what women of your rank have always done, which is everything, invisibly, sideways, through people, and starting now. You dictate 3 letters before the noon meal, and Master Simon's pen scratches like a small animal in dry leaves, and each letter is a move on a board most of the players do not know exists. The first goes to the bishop whose nephew you took into your household 4 years ago and made a man of. It discusses entirely a gift of wax candles to his cathedral for the Easter feast. Buried in it, one sentence asks his prayers for the good governance of all that God has placed in a poor woman's keeping. He will read that sentence 3 times. He sits on the king's council. He owes you and bishops, whatever else you may say of them, keep accounts. The second goes to your husband. It is warm, it is wifely, it is entirely about your son, a report from the boy's tutors that you've been saving for exactly such a need, that the child has begun his letters and formed the word for father before any other. Not one syllable about land, money, surveys, or councils. The letter has one purpose, to arrive in the king's hands as the voice of his family on the same week, that other voices are whispering to him about your revenues, and to remind him, below the level of argument, what you actually are to each other, which is, whatever the poets pretend, an alliance, 11 years old, that has kept both of you alive. The third letter is the dangerous one, and you make Simon burn his notes after, and you watch him do it, the parchment scrap curling in the flame with a smell like scorched hair. It goes to your own receiver general, the man who oversees all 9 counties of your dower, and it orders in plain language for once a complete audit of every manor, every rent, every arrear, begun this week, finished by Whitsun. Because if the king's escheators ever do ride into your lands with their measuring rods and their questions, they must find nothing. No sleeping reeve, no vanished mill wheel, no laundress unpaid. The argument that a woman cannot govern her own estates dies fastest when the estates are governed better than the king's. Your books will be your armour. You've been forging that armour every cold morning for 11 years at a table with a narrow clerk, and you understand now, with the letter's chill still on you, that some part of you always knew a morning like this would come, and that this is why you never once let the numbers slide. You seal all 3, the wax, the honey smell, the small-crowned woman with the bird on her wrist, pressed 3 times into 3 futures. Then you stand, and you smooth the front of your surcoat with both hands, one long downward stroke, the fur cool and dense under your palms, and this gesture is 15 years old, your mother's gesture, the one that means it is put away now, the face goes back on, because it is noon, and at noon a queen dines in public, before the whole household, and eats with a steady hand, and lets 60 people watch her do it. The performance does not pause for crowbars, and your hands, as you go down the 93 steps again, one for the stone, one for the skirts, are perfectly steady and cold to the bone, and both of those things will remain true for the rest of the day. Dinner, the main meal, at noon in the great hall, and you need to unlearn everything you think you know about medieval feasting, because this is not a feast, this is a Tuesday, and a Tuesday is choreography. The household eats in strict order, and the order is the map of the world. You on the dais, at the centre of the high table under the canopy of estate, cloth of your own arms hanging above your head, so that even someone who has never seen your face knows which body in the room is the state. Your ladies to your left, your steward and the visiting prior is prior to your right. Below the dais, the long tables run down the hall, and every soul in the household knows his seat to the inch. Knights, then clerks, then valets, then grooms, and the distance of your bench from the salt cellar is your worth. Published daily in furniture. Men have sulked for a month over 18 inches. Before one bite, the washing. A valet kneels with the ewer, the basin, the towel over his arm and pours scented water, rosemary steeped in it, over your fingers. And this is not fussiness, this is engineering, because forks do not exist here. You will eat with a knife and your first 3 fingers, everyone will. And so the cleanliness of hands is public morality, and a man who plunges a dirty fist into a shared dish will find himself eating alone by Friday. Table manners in 1247 are not etiquette. They are hygiene, enforced by shame, and they work. The food comes in procession, because everything you do comes in procession. The panter with the bread, the butler with the wine, then the dishes, carried high. A pottage of leeks and oats glossy with marrow, salt cod in a green sauce sharp with vinegar and pounded parsley, because it is a fish day. Friday's rules stretched over half the calendar by the church, and roughly a third of all the days of your year are fish days, and you have opinions about salt cod that a queen may never speak aloud. A dish of eggs in saffron that arrives yellow as a reliquary and costs in saffron alone more than the widow's cow this morning. You do the arithmetic without wanting to. You always do the arithmetic. Then the wine, Gascon, the last of it, watered for daytime, and the taste of it is dark fruit and oak and the faint sourness of a barrel reaching its end. And every swallow reminds you of the letter you sent to Bristol, and of the other letter, the one from the south, and you set the cup down and smile at the prior's story about his abbey's fish ponds, at exactly the right moment, warmly with your eyes as well as your mouth, because the prior will dine at 4 other great houses this season and describe you at every one of them. Here is what dinner actually is for you. An hour of being legible. Every portion you send down from the high table is a message. You carve honour with a knife. The best cut of the cod goes ceremonially down the hall to an old knight of your husband's, who took a wound at the bridge fight 9 years ago, and the hall sees it go. And the old man stands and bows, and something in the room settles half an inch more firmly into loyalty. You send the saffron eggs to your ladies. You send bread and the second fish to the boy who lies well, seated today at the very foot of the very last table, so new his bench still surprises him, and you watch the dish travel all that way down like a small ship, and you watch the men at each table mark its passage. The Queen has an eye on that boy, and by evening he will be worth talking to and being seen with. And that is how a 14-year-old with nothing becomes someone, 1 plate at a time, because you decided so between 2 swallows of wine. Power, you have learned, is mostly this. Not the crown in the chest upstairs worn 4 times a year. Lunch. Under the table, out of the 60 sightlines, your feet in their thin shoes are 2 blocks of cold, and your right thumb aches, and you flex it against your knee slowly 3 times, and take another piece of bread you do not want, because the Queen eating well means the Queen is well, and the Queen being well means the realm can think about something else today. After dinner, no rest, because daylight is the one commodity even you cannot buy more of, and the afternoon belongs to the wardrobe and the works, which is to say, to walking your own machine. You inspect. This is the part of a Queen's Day that surprises people most, so let me say it plainly. A great lady of 1247 is an administrator on her feet for hours, and the household expects her eye the way it expects the bell. You go down into the kitchens, and the kitchens receive you like a small weather event, ladles suspended, and the heat in there is the first true heat your body has felt since the bed. A wall of it, roasting fat and wood smoke and wet stone, and it makes your chilled fingers throb as they thaw, a deep itching burn in every fingertip, the day's strangest pleasure. You taste the evening's pottage from the long iron spoon the cook holds out, kneeling, and the spoon's handle is warm and greasy, and the pottage wants salt, and you say so, and the cook agrees with the enthusiasm of a man who put the salt shortage on his list 3 days ago, and now has a queen for a witness. Salt is money. Everything is money. You sign for the salt with a nod. You climb to the wardrobe tower, where the tailor and 2 sempstresses are cutting the summer liveries, 40 yards of russet across the trestles, and the room smells of new wool, lanolin and dust, an oily animal sweetness, and the shears go through the cloth with a long bite you feel in your own teeth, and you check the cloth between finger and thumb, rolling the weave, feeling for the loose hand of a cheated thread count, because the draper in the town would not be the first to sell a castle short weft at full price. The weave is honest. You tell the tailor so. He breathes out. You stop in the mews, where your falcon sits unhooded on her block, and these 10 minutes are the closest thing to privacy your entire day contains. The mews is dim and smells of feathers and mutes and clean straw, and the falconer knows to busy himself at the far end. She steps to your glove, and her weight lands on your wrist, 2 pounds of murder balancing with absolute delicacy, her talons finding their grip through the leather, a pressure like a strong man's fingers, and she turns one black eye on you with the total, unembarrassed attention of a creature that has never once pretended anything. You feed her a scrap. Her beak takes it from your fingers with a precision that could split a hair or a knuckle. Her choice, always her choice. You stand there in the dim with the day's cold in your feet and a chamberlain's courteous knife in your mind's pocket, and a wild thing gripping your wrist, and you think, not for the first time, that she is the only member of this entire household who does not care that you are the queen, and that this is why you love her. Then the bell for vespers thin across the courtyard, and the glove comes off, and the face goes back on, and you go down to be the queen some more. 'Cause the evening's coming, and the evening has a guest in it. The abbess of the great convent at Wickford arrived an hour ago with 6 nuns, and a business proposal wearing the clothes of a courtesy call, and after her comes supper, and after supper the hall with its music and its watching, and somewhere out in the dark beyond the walls, riding through it right now, 90 miles off, your 3 sealed letters are moving across the kingdom like pieces sliding on a board, and you will not know for a week whether any of them landed, and you must pass every hour of that week looking like a woman who has never heard the word esquita in her life. The abbess of Wickford is 60 years old, and made of the same material as the castle. You receive her in your chamber. The good chairs, the fire built up, spiced wine warmed with a poker straight from the coals, so that it hisses and sends up a breath of clove and hot iron, and the 2 of you spend the first quarter hour discussing the health of various souls, which is how women of your rank sharpen their knives. Then she puts down her cup and comes to it. Her convent holds a marsh from your honour, 40 acres of reed and eel, and the convent has drained a corner of it quietly over some years and turned it to pasture, and pasture pays 4 times what marsh pays, and the convent has continued all this time to render you the marsh rent. She has come, she says, folding her hands, because she has heard, and here her eyes rest on you with the weight of a woman who has run an institution through 4 kings, that the Queen is lately looking very closely into all her rents. She has heard that within the day. Within the day. Your audit letter went out this morning under oath of secrecy, and an abbess 40 miles away is already adjusting to it. Never let anyone tell you news travelled slowly in the Middle Ages. News among the powerful travelled at the speed of self-interest, which is the fastest thing there is. So she proposes, before being asked, a new rent for the improved land, backdated 1 year of the probable 6, and in exchange, her convent's perpetual prayers for you and yours, entered in their book, remembered daily at the altar, forever. And you sit with your warm cup and admire her, honestly, professionally, the way one swordsman admires another, because look at the shape of it, she's confessing at a discount. If your auditors found the pasture cold, she would owe 6 years in her reputation. By riding here first, she pays 1 year, keeps her honour, and puts you in her debt for accepting gracefully. And the prayers, do not laugh at the prayers. In this world, perpetual prayers are a currency more stable than silver, and both of you know it. You take the offer, adjust it to 2 years backdated. She expected that. You both knew the real number before she sat down, and the whole negotiation happens in language a stranger would mistake for 2 devout women discussing eels. When she leaves, she takes your hands in her dry old ones and says quietly, not for the room, "Hold what is yours, daughter. They will call it grasping. When a man does it, they call it governance." And she is gone in a rustle of black wool, and you stand there for a moment feeling as if a very old campaigner has just walked the length of your walls, noted every weak stone, and blessed them. Supper is light and late. The hall by torch and firelight now, the smoke haze gone gold and thick, moths coming in through the louver to die enthusiastically in the flames. Then the evening, the part of the day the poems remember. Music. Your harper plays and a boy sings. The long sad song of the lovers drowned crossing the winter river. 29 verses. Everyone knows all of them. Everyone wants all of them. And the hall goes soft and quiet. The day's hierarchy loosening 1 notch. Night sprawling. Your lady's needle slowing. And even you on the dais, with your spine held straight by will and boned wool, feel the music undoing small knots down the back of your neck. This is also work. Understand that. The Queen, visibly at ease, is a public service. The hall reads your rest the way it reads your appetite, but somewhere in the 21st verse, with the fire ticking and a dog's dreaming feet scrabbling softly against the rushes, it stops being entirely performance, and for the space of a dozen breaths you are just a tired woman in a warm room full of singing, and your eyes go up the smoke to the black louver and the one visible star beyond it, and you let them. Then the hall empties by rank, reversing the morning, and the day begins its long undressing. Because everything from dawn now happens again backward. Up the 93 steps, slower this time, your knees announcing each one. The chamber, the fire banked, the bed curtains ghostly in the rushlight, and the hands come back, Matilda's, Alice's, unpinning, unwinding, unlacing, the architecture of your head dismantled piece by piece, veil, fillet, barbette, and when the band comes out from under your jaw, the skin there stings at the touch of open air, and Alice combs your hair out long and crackling, and the weight of the day comes off you in layers, surcoat, gown, stockings, each one lifting like a hand removed. until you stand in the linen shift alone and weigh. Suddenly, nothing, and the cold finds you instantly through the thin cloth, and you get into the bed fast into the cave of curtains, onto the down, and the sheets are like still water. Cold first, then slowly, slowly yours. Matilda's voice through the curtain, the day's last accounting, the abbess lodged in the east chamber, the letters gone by the south road, the boy sworn into the household, the laundress paid. A pause, and the Reeve of Weston, my lady, will have his letter by Sunday. You can hear it, the very small dry thing in her voice that is Matilda smiling. 11 years! You do not entirely like her. There is no one alive you trust more. Good night, Matilda. The rushlight goes out with a pinch and a breath of burnt fat. Alice settles on the truckle bed. 2 rustles and a sigh. The castle ticks and shifts around you. Stone cooling. A door somewhere. The watchman's step on the wall walk overhead. Slow, regular. A man walking back and forth above your ceiling all night so that you may close your eyes, and beyond him the wind, and beyond the wind nothing. The enormous black country asleep. And you lie in the warmth coming up around you like water, and you count it, because you are you, and even your rest gets audited. The widow has her cow. The books will be clean by Whitson. The bishop will read his sentence 3 times. Your son has written the word for father. Somewhere south, a man who thought your lands would be easy is going to spend this same night sleeping soundly, wrongly. Your hands ache at the thumbs. Your knees hold the day's stone in them. The line under your chin burns faintly where the band pressed. You are 29 years old, and you have been on duty since before light, and you will be again before light. And this was an ordinary day, an easy one. No war, no birth, no death closer than a chamberlain's ink. Tomorrow there will be the accounts again. Tomorrow there will be petitioners again, and the cold stares, and the watching hall, and the face that goes on with the veil. But that's tomorrow. Right now there is only the dark inside the curtains, only the down giving under you, the slow return of your own warmth, Alice's breathing finding its night rhythm at your feet, the watchman's step, fainter now, or maybe you're just listening less. The boundary starts to blur, the way it does, the way it always does, when a body has been used all the way to its edges, and sleep takes you, mid-thought, the way it takes the overworked, like a trapdoor. Morning comes the way it always comes, which is to say it comes for you first. The shutter bar, the fire, the broom in the rushes, Alice's cold fingers at your ankle with the slippers, the water over your wrists like a rope of ice, the rough towel, the 7 layers going back on, the boxwood comb, the band under your jaw. Your body performs the whole liturgy half asleep, and here is a truth about a life built entirely of ritual. It carries you on the mornings you could not carry yourself. You do not have to decide to be the queen today. The hands decide it for you, garment by garment, and by the time the veil is pinned, she's on, she's operational. Whatever is underneath her can catch up later. But this morning is different, because this morning you are leaving. You decided it in the night somewhere between the watchman's 3rd and 4th circuit, in that clear cold room the mind keeps open behind sleep. The audit you ordered will take weeks and travel by parchment. Parchment can be argued with, but if the queen herself rides out and is seen in the flesh, walking her own manors, counting her own sheep, correcting her own reeves, then by the time any asceta in the kingdom saddles a horse, the story will already be everywhere ahead of him. Those lands are held, not administered, held in person by a woman who knows the price of a mill wheel. A survey is a weapon that only works on an absent owner, so you will be present, everywhere, loudly. You tell Matilda over the standing breakfast, yesterday's bread again, always yesterday's bread, and she receives it the way she receives everything, one slow nod, and then the household begins to turn itself inside out around you, because a queen does not simply ride somewhere. A queen moves the way a small army moves, and now you get to see the machine you own do the thing it was truly built for. Understand what royal travel is, because it is the single most medieval thing there is, more than castles, more than crowns. Kings and queens in 1247 do not live anywhere. They live everywhere, in rotation, and the reason is brutally simple: food. A great household of 200 mouths eats a district bare in a matter of weeks, and roads being what they are, it is far cheaper to carry the household to the food than the food to the household. So the court perpetually migrates, manor to manor, castle to castle, eating its way around the map like a slow, glittering caterpillar, and everyone who has ever done laundry for it dreads its coming and mourns its leaving because it pays. By the second hour after dawn, the inner courtyard is a controlled riot. Carts, first, the long four-wheeled ones, and into them goes your world. Disassembled. The bed, yes, the actual bed. The frame broken down into numbered timbers, the feather mattresses rolled and corded, the curtains folded, because you will sleep in your own bed tonight 30 miles from here. That is what it means to be a queen. Your bed travels. The chapel packed into chests, altar stone, vestments, the silver-gilt chalice wrapped in fleece, the wardrobe in leather-bound trunks, the kitchen's iron in straw, the rolls, Master Simon's precious rolls, in waxed canvas against the rain, and Simon hovering over them like a hen with one chick. The smell of the yard is horse and leather and fresh grease. The wheels have all been greased at dawn, and the sound is a language of its own. The hollow boom of empty carts, the grunt and heave of men lifting, iron tires grinding on stone, 40 horses expressing opinions. You ride out mid-morning at the head of a column a quarter-mile long. And this is the moment every time when the day pivots and becomes, despite everything, briefly wonderful. Because you are on a horse, and the gate is behind you. Your palfrey is a grey mare with gates like still water, bred for exactly this. An ambler, both legs on a side, moving together so that her back flows instead of jolting, and you sit her sideways and forward in the lady's seat with your right knee hooked, and your skirts arranged by Alice's hands, and your body remembering, muscle by muscle, that it likes this. The reins are 2 live wires of soft leather. The mare's warmth comes up through the saddle like the first honest heat of the day. And the world outside the walls that you see perhaps a dozen times a season, opens up on both sides of the road and starts pouring past. April is doing its work on the country. The ploughed fields are combed brown corduroy, and men are walking them broadcast sowing, the seed leaving their hands in flat glittering arcs, and rooks following each man like a personal storm cloud. The verges are white with blackthorn. Somewhere a cuckoo, the first you've heard this year, tolling its 2 notes over and over like a bell that only knows good news. The road itself is the kingdom's true architecture, mud and stone and memory, mended parish by parish according to laws older than anyone can date, and it is full. A friar walking south with his skirts kilted up out of the muck. A string of pack horses under wool bales, their driver asleep on his feet. Two girls driving geese with hazel wands who see the column and freeze and then see you. And their faces do something that you will keep for the rest of the day. A pure, unguarded blaze of astonishment. The queen, the actual queen, on an actual road, and one of them drops so deep a curtsy she sits in the ditch, and you laugh. Out loud, the first fully real laugh in days, and send Alice back with a coin for each of them. And 50 years from now, an old woman in that parish will still be telling it. This is the other thing progress does, the thing no clerk writes down. It shows you to the land. A king people never see becomes a rumour, and rumours can be rewritten by anyone with a fireside. A queen who has ridden past your field, laughed at your daughter's curtsy, is a person, and you do not easily believe wicked whispers about a person whose horse you have smelled. Visibility is armour. Your whole ride today is armour. 30 miles is a very long day in the saddle. By the 10th mile the pleasure has company. The specific ache of the lady's seat, one hip doing the work of two, a deep line of complaint from right knee to lower back that you shift against by degrees, the windburn tightening your cheeks above the barbette, your hands, in their thin leather, cold again, always cold, chapped at the knuckles now, and when you flex them the skin over the joints stings in fine cracks. Dust when the road is dry, and when it isn't, the mud coming up from the hooves ahead in a fine continuous christening. You stop at noon at a priory that has known for 3 days you are coming, has scrubbed itself to the bone, and feeds you eel pie and their good ale in a parlour that smells of beeswax and panic, and the prioress's hands shake pouring, and you put her at ease with 2 questions about her herb garden, and mean them, and by the time you leave she's telling you about her chilblain salve like a sister, goose grease and rosemary. You take the little pot she presses on you. You will actually use it. And in the last hour, with the light going long and gold and the rook streaming home over the road, your manor of Elmham rises ahead out of its trees, and you sit up straighter without deciding to, because now, again, still, always, you're arriving. An arrival is performance, and the whole village is out along the street to watch the caterpillar come in, and the face goes back on over the windburn and the aching hip. The Reeve of Elmham is waiting at the manor gate with his rod of office and a face like a man rehearsing. His name is Walter, and Walter, you happen to know from this morning's hour with Simon's rolls, jolting along in your memory for 30 miles, has been rendering you suspiciously round numbers for 3 years. Fields do not produce round numbers. Fields produce numbers like 11 shillings 4pence 3 farthings. When a Reeve's accounts come up shillings even year after year, it means he is not counting. It means he is estimating, and a man estimates in one direction only, and it is never yours. "Welcome, gracious lady, to your manor of Elmham," says Walter, bowing. "Thank you, Walter," you say, dismounting into Alice's steadying hands, your knees taking the ground like news they'd been dreading. "We shall see everything tomorrow." And you watch the word everything land on him and sink in and begin slowly to spread. The manor house of Elmham is not a castle, and your body thanks it. Timber and stone, a hall with a proper hearth, a solar above with miracle, actual glass in one window, greenish and whirled like pond ice, and by nightfall your travelling bed stands assembled in it. Curtains hung, mattresses beaten, as if the whole day's 30 miles had been a dream, and the bed had simply followed you through it. You eat in the small hall simply, chicken in its own broth with bread, and you're asleep before Alice finishes her prayers. Felled, dropped, gone, the sleep of muscle and open air, the best sleep money cannot buy and saddles can, and the next day you count. Understand what a manorial survey looks like when the lady does it herself, because Walter is about to have the worst Wednesday of his life. It begins after Mass in the manor courtyard with a trestle table carried out into the spring sun, and Simon's rolls unrolled and weighted with stones, and every soul who owes you anything, which in this parish is every soul summoned by the bell. And then, item by item, holding by holding, the manor is read aloud against reality. The domain first, your own home farm. You walk it, physically. In patterns, wooden platform soles strapped under your shoes, lifting you 2 inches above the mud, and even so your hem takes on weight like a confession as the morning goes. The winter wheat is up, a green fur over the long furrows, and you crouch, actually crouch, hand on Alice's shoulder, and part the blades and look at the stand of it, the spacing, because your mother taught you what thin sowing looks like, and a bailiff who sows your seed thin has sold the difference. It is not thin. Walter breathes. The sheep are folded for you to see, and this is the centre of everything because wool is the kingdom's silver, and your flocks are the deep engine of your whole revenue. 400 ewes at Elmham, say the rolls. You stand at the hurdle gate while the shepherds run them through, and Simon counts with a tally stick notch by notch, and you count too silently in the old shepherd's dozens, and the smell of the fold rises around you, lanolin and dung and crushed grass, thick enough to lean on, and the noise is a wall. 400 ewes and their lambs, each convinced of a personal emergency, and the animals pour and jostle through the gap in a grey-brown river, and your eye rides it. 371. The rolls say 429 ewes are elsewhere. Walter explains. Moraine in the autumn, deaths, all accounted. Simon turns the roll around. The autumn account records 11 deaths. Walter looks at the roll for a long moment, and then at his own boots, and 18 sheep bleat softly in the gap between those numbers. 18 fleeces a year, 3 years running, wearing, this very moment. You would bet the crown in the chest at home, the earmarks of Walter's brother-in-law's flock across the valley. You do not raise your voice. You have never once needed to raise your voice, and you learned young that the quieter you get, the worse it is for the man in front of you. Walter, you say, in the voice for this, the flat one, the account's voice. You will restore 18 ewes with their lambs to my fold by Sunday, and their fleece value for 3 years to my receiver by Whitsun, and Simon will note that you did so of your own confession, freely. A pause exactly as long as it needs to be, or Simon will note something else. And this is the moment the whole courtyard has been waiting for, 40 villagers with sudden urgent business within earshot. Because everyone knew, of course, everyone knew, the whole parish has watched those ewes walk across the valley for 3 years and said nothing. Because the reeve holds the manor court and short memories are safer. And now they watch their lady, a woman in a mud-heavy hem and wooden pattens, take him apart in 2 sentences without one word a priest could not repeat, and something shifts in the parish. Permanently, some old weight redistributes itself, and next year's numbers, you know from experience, will not be round. Walter chooses confession. Men mostly do, when you leave them the door. And here is the part they will not tell you in the ballads, part 2. You then keep him. You do not break him, do not throw him off the manor, and it is not mercy, or not only. A corrected reeve who owes his skin to your restraint is the best reeve in England, and for the rest of his life he will guard your rents the way a burned man guards fire. Also, and you would only admit this to the falcon, replacing him is work, and your days are full. Dinner that day in the manor hall, and afterward the village asks leave to keep the eve of St. Mark with dancing on the green, which is a way of asking whether the lady is angry with Elmer M'Intyre, and you grant it and more come out to watch, wrapped in the fur cloak against the evening, and they dance the long chain dance in the dusk, pipe and tabor, the drum like a heartbeat with a limp, sparks going up from the bonfire in slow spirals, children shrieking in orbits around the whole thing, and the ale goes round, and an old man is at last persuaded by his granddaughters to sing the song about the fox and the friar, which everyone including you knows is filthy if you follow it closely, and everyone including you elects not to follow it closely, and you laugh in the dark where laughing is free, and drink the village's own ale from the village's own cup when they bring it to you, which matters, and they know it matters, and the cup is coarse earthenware, gritty at the rim, and the ale is thick and bready and better than half of what your butler pours, and you say so, loudly, and make a woman's whole year. You do this for 9 days, manor after manor. Wake, ride, count, correct, be seen, sleep. The column moves across your scattered dower like a needle sewing, and behind it the thread pulls tight. At Ditton you find the mill honest, and the miller cheating, which is traditional. Millers take their toll of flour with a thumb on the scale so universally that the whole kingdom jokes about it, and you fine him lightly and publicly, for form, and he pays it, grinning, for form, and the scale you're assured will be honest now, and everyone in the queue outside the mill winks at everyone else. At Marsh Hall the reeve is a woman, a widow doing her dead husband's office because no one told her to stop, and her rolls are the cleanest you see all week, penny true, and you confirm her in the office in her own name, over the audible intake of several male breaths, and ride on. Small acts, 9 days of small acts, but every single one of them is a nail, and what you're nailing shut mile by mile, manor by manor, is the door that letter from the south tried to open. Your body keeps its own rolls of the 9 days, and its accounting is merciless. The inside of your knees saddle-worn, your hands past chapped now and into cracked, the goose-grease salve from the prioress going on each night, Alice working it into the split knuckles while you hiss, the smell of rosemary and sheep following you into sleep, windburn, settled into your face like a second complexion, and a tiredness that is no longer an evening event but a country you live in, familiar, almost companionable, the deep bone hum of a body being spent daily down to the rind and refilled with mutton broth and 6 hours of sleep. You are 29, this is the job. Nobody carries the queen is the one carrying. And on the 10th day, riding the last miles home under a sky stacked with rain, that cannot decide, you see, from 2 miles off, on the road that comes up from the south to meet yours at the castle gate, another column, smaller than yours, faster, 20 horses, no carts, moving like men with a schedule. Matilda sees them in the same moment. You feel her mare come up beside yours. Neither of you says anything for a moment. The 2 roads run toward each other across the wet green country like a problem in geometry. Royal livery, says Matilda at last, whose eyes are better than they have any right to be at 52. Yes, you say. The rain decides. It starts to fall, fine and cold, beading on the mare's mane, and you ride the last 2 miles at a walk, at exactly a walk, unhurried, unbothered, visible to anyone watching from either column. Arriving at your own gate in your own time while under the 7th layer of wool, your heart does what it did in the hall 10 days ago, and your face does absolutely nothing at all. Because the letters have landed. Somewhere, some of them, somehow. And you are about to find out how. The man the 20 horses have brought is Sir Roger of Amory, and you have known him for 11 years, and in 11 years you have never once decided whether he is your friend. He is one of the king's household knights, 40-some, going grey at the temples in a way he is entirely aware of, dressed in riding clothes that cost what Elmham renders in a year, and he greets you in your own hall, dripping with the full bow and the full titles and eyes that are already working, the way courtiers' eyes always work, cataloguing, the Queen is thin, the Queen is wind-burned, the Queen has clearly been on the road, note it, note everything. Everything is worth something to someone. You give him fire, dry clothes, spiced wine, an hour, because hospitality is law, and also because making a messenger comfortable before he delivers is a way of reminding him whose roof is over the delivering. And then, in the small chamber, fire built high, Matilda at her needlework, Simon in the corner with his ink, because you are done forever, receiving the king's words without your own witness and your own record, Sir Roger delivers. He does it beautifully, you'll give him that. 20 years at court and the man could make a death sentence sound like an invitation to dance. But you were raised at a court too, and you listen the way Simon reads rolls, stripping the numbers out of the music, and the numbers, when you have them all laid out, are these. First, the king thanks his dearest consort for her letter, and for the news of his son, and Sir Roger adds, in a tone stepped carefully down to indicate this is the true cargo. The king read that letter aloud. At table, the word for father, to the whole company, twice. You incline your head slightly and say something gracious, and inside your chest a fist you've been carrying for 10 days opens one finger. Because you can see it, you can see the table, you know exactly who is sitting at it, and you know what it costs a man to move against a woman whose 6-year-old son the king has just quoted twice at supper. Everything. It costs him everything. Sentiment at court is not soft. Is not. Sentiment is terrain, and you just took the high ground with one page about a child's handwriting. Second, the matter of the survey of the Queen's lands. Sir Roger produces the phrase like a man laying a card he no longer likes. The King's Council has considered it, and the King has determined, and here Sir Roger quotes, and you would bet a manor he was required to memorize it exactly, that the estates of our dearest Queen, being governed with such diligence as is known to all men, require no other keeper than she, as is known to all men. 10 days. The bishop's sentence read 3 times. The abbess, adjusting within a day. 9 manors watching a woman in pattens count sheep, and every market in 9 counties retelling it, and the story riding faster than any escheator ever could until it arrived at a council table 90 miles south as a settled fact of the world. The Queen's lands are held. Not a defence, you argued. A weather everyone was suddenly standing in. That is how the game is actually won at your level, not in the confrontation, which never comes, but 3 moves before it, in candle wax and cows and a boy's first written word, so that by the time your enemy reaches for the door, it has quietly become a wall. And third, because there is always a third, because the king never sends 20 horses to deliver good news only. The king, in his need, asks of his dearest consort alone against the war in the south. Not a survey, not a taking. A loan, requested from her own free revenues, at terms recorded, repayable. And there it is. You almost smile and don't. This is the price, and notice the shape of it, because the shape is everything. He is asking. The whole engine of the last 2 weeks, the letter, the fear, the cold drop down the spine in the window light, all of it has resolved into the one outcome that was actually winnable. Not whether you would pay, you were always going to pay. The war is real and the need is real, and his ruin would be your ruin, but how? As a subject surveyed, or as a power petitioned. They tried the first. You made it impossible. So now the King of England borrows from his wife, on record, and every man at that council table has been taught, in the politest possible grammar, what the Queen's seal is worth. Tell the King, you say, that his Queen holds nothing that is not at his service, and that our receiver will wait upon his treasurer at Whitsun, and you name a sum, unprompted, precise, slightly larger than they will have dared hope for, because generosity, deployed from a position just secured, is the most frightening thing a rich woman can do. And Simon, note the terms. Sir Roger looks at you for a moment with the eyes finally at rest, the cataloguing done, and something older underneath them, something almost like the abbess's look, one professional to another across the board. He said you would say that, Sir Roger says, word for word near enough, a beat. He also said, and this part, my lady, was not for the council, tell her the cuckoo is early in the south this year, and he minds the spring at Marlborough, and that, out of the entire embassy, is the sentence that gets past your guard. The spring at Marlborough, 11 years ago, before the crown sat down on both your lives, a garden you have not thought of in, 4 years? 5? A fish pond, a man of 23 who could not yet grow the beard he wanted, laughing at a falcon that refused to come down out of a pear tree for anyone but you. Your face, for 1 second, does something. Matilda's needle does not pause. Simon studies his ink. Tell him, you say, and your voice is perfectly level, and choosing the words takes you exactly as long as one breath, that the falcon still comes to no one else. Sir Roger bows, and the state business of the Kingdom of England, war loans and land law, and the standing of queens, having been fully transacted, everyone in the room pretends, in the great tradition of everyone in every room you've ever occupied, not to have noticed the only thing that actually happened. That night the hall gets a proper feast, because 20 of the king's men are under your roof, and every one of them is a mouth that will describe your table in the south, and you dine them on roast kid and a subtlety of spun sugar shaped as a swan, and your harper earns his year's livery, and you sit under the canopy of estate with your windburn and your cracked knuckles hidden in your sleeves and preside over the whole golden smoky racket of it. And you are so tired that the torch flames have grown soft halos, and you would not trade this evening, this specific evening, for any other evening of your reign. Because you held it, the thing that is yours. They came at it with courtesy and crowbars, and you held it with wax and parchment and patterns in the mud, without raising your voice, without shedding one visible tear, without any single moment a chronicle will ever record. And that is the truth about power that this whole day has been trying to tell you, listener, lying there in your own dark. The battles that shape a life mostly never look like battles. They look like accounting. They look like lunch. They look like a woman deciding at a cold table at 7 a.m. to check one mill wheel against her own memory. The chronicles of this kingdom will give this entire fortnight one line, if that. In this year the Queen made a progress of her lands. Everything else, the widow's cow, Walter's 18 ewes, The word for father, the spring at Marlborough, will fall through history's floorboards, the way almost everything always does, the way the actual texture of every actual life always does, and be gone, except that you lived it. And tonight, in a manner of speaking, so did you. Before the year sweeps on, stay for 2 more days inside her skin, because there are 2 kinds of day a queen's calendar keeps that you have not carried yet, and without them you do not know her. The first is the rarest luxury her world contains. The second is the oldest fear it contains, Bath Day and a birth. Bath Day comes the week after the king's men leave, because 20 guests in a castle is a labour that must be scrubbed off afterward, and because Easter approaches and a queen goes to her Easter duties clean. Understand what a bath is in 1247, and forget everything you have been told about the Middle Ages and washing, because most of it is slander invented centuries later. Medieval people wash constantly, hands and face daily. Everyone. It is doctrine and manners both. What they cannot do casually is immerse, because immersion is an engineering project, and this morning you get to feel the whole project happen around you. It begins 2 hours before you touch water. The great tub comes up from the store, oak staves bound in iron, big enough to sit 2, and the grooms wrestle it up the stairs with language they believe you cannot hear. It is set before the fire in your chamber, and then lined completely with linen sheets, because oak splinters and iron stains and a queen's skin is, we have established, a matter of state. Then a tent of waxed linen is rigged over it on a frame, like a small pavilion inside the room, to hold the steam and keep the draughts off. And by the time it is done, there is a second, softer room standing inside your room, glowing faintly with firelight through its walls. And then the water. Count the labour, because your whole world is counted labour. The water comes from the well in the inner courtyard, 60 feet of rope to the bucket, and up the 93 stairs, and the tub drinks perhaps 40 gallons, and a strong boy carries 4 gallons a trip if he wants his shoulders to last, and every gallon must go through the kitchen first to meet the fire. So, 2 boys, 10 trips each, an hour and a half of climbing, the kitchen's great coppers roaring, and a chain of yoked buckets swaying up the spiral dark, steam trailing behind them like ghosts being led somewhere better. You hear the whole operation through the floor, the rhythmic grunt and slop of it, these same 2 boys whose shoulders you have watched change shape over the years, changing shape a little more. Herbs go into the water as it fills, rosemary again, always rosemary and chamomile, and a knot of dried rose petals from last summer's garden that opens in the heat and gives up its ghost of June. The steam inside the linen tent goes green and sweet, and then Matilda tests the water with her forearm like a woman who's been scolded by exactly 1 bath in her life, 40 years ago, and never forgiven it, and nods, and you leave your shift at the tent's mouth and step over the linen-padded rim and lower yourself in. And, oh, listen, you've been cold since the 2nd week of October. Not dramatically cold, not dangerously, just constantly. A low tax on every hour, cold feet at dinner, cold hands at the accounts, the cold stripe of every stone you have touched for 5 months, and you had stopped noticing because it is the water you swim in. And now actual water, actually hot, closes over your whole body at once, and every one of those 5 months rises off you together. The heat finds the saddle ache in your hips and argues with it. It finds the split knuckles and makes them sing, a bright sting that fades to throb, that fades to nothing. It finds muscles down your back you did not know were holding until one by one, shockingly, they stop. Your breath goes out of you in a long fall. The linen under you shifts softly against the oak. The fire ticks through the tent wall. Somewhere below, the castle goes on without you, and for 1 hour, one paid for, hauled for, boiled for hour, that is allowed. Alice washes your hair with lye soap softened with fat and scented, rinses it with a jug, again, the water sheeting warm over your scalp and shoulders, and you sit with your knees up like a girl, like the girl at Marlborough with the pear tree, and think precisely nothing. It is the only hour of the season in which you think nothing, and it cost 40 gallons, 2 boys' shoulders, and half a day of your household's labour. And here is the arithmetic. You refuse to do this one time, the only sum all year you decline, what it costs against what it is worth. Some things you keep off the rolls on purpose. Afterward, wrapped, combed, dried by the fire until your hair hangs heavy and hot down your back, you are, for one evening, entirely warm, all the way through, to the bone, and you sleep that night like the dead of a good parish. You will not be that warm again until May. You know it, and take it anyway. That is the whole art of your life in one lesson. Take the warm hour entire, and do not poison it with April. And then, 3 nights later, in the black hours long after Compline, a hand comes through your bed curtains and touches your shoulder, and you are awake the way queens and mothers wake, all at once, fully, like a candle being lit. It is Alice, and Alice's face in the rushlight is the wrong colour. My lady, it's Joan. Her time is come, and Mother Edith says... And Alice's voice does the thing voices do when they are repeating words they wish they were not carrying. She says it comes wrong. Joan, your second lady of the chamber, married 2 years to one of the household knights, great with her first child, and she was going to her mother's manor for the lying-in next week. Next week, everything arranged, the chamber, the midwife, the borrowed relic of St. Margaret next week, and children do not read calendars, they never have, and the birth is here, tonight, in your castle, under your roof, which makes it, by every law of God and household, yours. You're out of the bed before the thought finishes. Furs over the shift, feet into the cold slippers, and down the corridor with the rushlight shadows swinging, and understand as you go what you are walking toward, because your world understands it with a clarity yours has been blessed into forgetting. Childbirth, in 1247, is the war women are conscripted to. Every woman who marries walks toward it knowing the numbers, not as numbers, no one keeps those rolls, but as names. Every woman knows names. Your own mother buried 2 sisters of the childbed fever. You have buried, in 11 years, 1 cousin, 2 ladies, and in 9 days of last summer that you keep behind a door in your mind, tried and failed to keep your own daughter, though that battle at least your own body survived. When a great lady is brought to bed, her will is often already written. When the pains begin, the priest is told where he can be found. This is not morbidness. This is packing for a journey by the known map. And into that war, women go the way soldiers do, together and by ritual. The birth chamber is already being made when you arrive, and you take command of it because command is your office. The room is Joan's own, and it is being sealed. Hangings over the window, the door to be kept, warm, dim, closed, a womb built around the womb. This is the custom, and it is older than the castle, and men are banished, utterly, all of them. The husband to the chapel where he is at this moment being poured wine by the chaplain, and beginning the longest night of his marriage, and physicians, such as they are, not sent for because birth is not the physician's country. Birth belongs to the midwife, and the midwife belongs to God and her own 2 hands. Mother Edith is 60, a freeman's widow from the town below the walls, and she has delivered, she will tell you if you ask, and you once asked, more children than the parish has living souls. Her hands are small and strong and scrubbed raw, and her sleeves are rolled and tied, and she has already made her judgment, which is the judgment Alice carried through your bed curtains. The child is coming wrong, not head down, driving like a swimmer the way the road is built to be travelled, but breech backward, and every woman in the room knows what that word costs, and not one of them lets it reach her face, because Joan is watching every face. That is what labouring women do. They read faces like sailors read sky, and the discipline of the birth chamber, the absolute law of it, is the same discipline you learned for the dais. The face shows what the woman in the bed needs it to show, and nothing else. All night, no matter what. So you do the thing that queenship is actually for. You sit at the head of the bed, and you take Joan's hands, and you become the wall she breaks against. Hours! Understand, hours in that room! The fire kept low and steady. The sweet heavy air, tallow and sweat and blood, and the crushed herb smell of the poultices Edith warms at the hearth. The women working in shifts, walking Joan when Edith says walk, her weight sagging on their shoulders between pains, kneeling her at the birthing stool when Edith says kneel. The pains coming like weather, you can see each one arrive from far off in Joan's eyes before her body answers it, and when it breaks, her grip closes on your hands, and I want you to feel this, listener, because you have felt everything else today. A labouring woman's grip is not like anything. It is beyond her own strength, and beyond yours. It grinds the small bones of your hands against each other, and bends the rings into your fingers, and you do not pull away, you grip back, and by the 3rd hour your hands are bruised to the wrist, and you have stopped counting that, the way she has stopped counting everything, and between the pains the ritual, because ritual is what the room has instead of medicine, and do not be quick to pity them for it. The relic girdle, a strip of blessed parchment lent by the priory, laid over Joan's belly with the psalm written along it. The prayers to St. Margaret, who burst whole from the belly of a dragon, and so keeps this door, said in rounds, low, rhythmic, all night, a sound like the sea in a shell. And whatever you believe, whatever anyone believes, understand what that sound does to a frightened animal body at 3 a.m. It says, in the oldest language there is, you're not alone in the dark. We are all here. The chain of us goes back forever, and it holds. Every knot on every cord in the room untied, every lid unlidded, every door in the chamber stood open, because like calls to like, and nothing in the room must be shut. Superstition, your century will say. Theatre staged by women for a woman, so that terror has something to do with its hands. Your century, which numbs the body and forgets to treat the fear, should be slower to laugh. Deep in the smallest hour, the worst of it. Edith kneeling, working, her arms slick past the elbow, talking the whole time in her flat market day voice, to Joan, to the child, to St. Margaret, to her own hands. Turn now, little one, turn for Edith, and Joan past screaming now, into the low animal groan that every woman in the room recognizes with her spine, and the room itself seeming to narrow, to hold its breath. The fire, the psalms, the small bones of your hands, and one of the younger women weeping silently with her face turned to the wall where Joan cannot see, and you, holding the grey face on the pillow with your eyes, saying the thing over and over that is your whole office made small. I am here. Look at me. I am not leaving. You are held. And then Edith says, now, in a voice like a latch lifting, and the room converges, and there is a long tearing eternity that no chronicle in any archive of the kingdom will ever record, and then a cry, thin, furious, brand new, the sound a soul makes coming through the door backward and offended about it. A boy, feet first into the world like a diver who changed his mind, grey, then mottled, then under Edith's rubbing hands and a mouthful of her own breath, pink and shouting and alive. And the room, the sealed, disciplined, sea-sounding room, comes apart all at once into laughter and weeping and prayers finishing themselves mid-word. And Joan, wrung grey on the pillow, alive, alive, both of them alive, turns her head and looks for you and finds you, and you bend down so she can whisper it, because she has no voice left above a whisper. His name is for you, my lady. If he'd been a girl. And you laugh, and it comes out wrong, thick, and no one in that room minds or will ever tell. Dawn is greying the hangings when you finally climb your own stairs. Your shift is spattered. Your hands are bruised blue at the knuckles. Your back is a single sustained opinion, and you have never in your life been more precisely made of lead. In the courtyard below, someone is already ringing the little bell, and the word is running through the castle at the speed of joy. And in the chapel a young knight is on his knees, laughing and crying into the chaplain's shoulder, being finally told. You stand a moment at the horn-paned slit and watch the light come. There will be a churching in a month, Joan carried to the chapel door in her finest to be blessed back into the world. Candles and feasting, and you will pay for all of it and stand godmother to the boy, and somewhere in the roll Simon will enter the cost under arms and gifts, one line, and history will lose the rest, as usual, as always. Edith's flat voice, the psalms like the sea, the grip that bruised a queen's hands to the wrist. Your daughter lived 9 days. That door in your mind stood open all night, because every door in the room must stand open. That is the custom, and you kept your face because that is the other custom, and now alone, for the length of 10 breaths at a grey window, you do not keep it. Then you wash your face in the cold basin, and the cold is almost kind, and the day, having no idea what the night was, arrives anyway, with its bread and its rolls and its 200 souls, one more of them now than yesterday. You go down the stairs, short, long, the cracked one. The accounts are always there. This morning, that is the kind fact, and you know it. And before the year moves, one more day, because Holy Week arrives that same fortnight, and Holy Week holds the strangest hour a queen's calendar contains, the 1 hour a year when the whole pyramid is turned deliberately, publicly, upside down. Maundy Thursday. The day the highest washed the feet of the lowest, because a king did it once in an upper room in Jerusalem, and so kings and queens have done it every year since anyone can remember, and will keep doing it, in your listeners' world, into the age of engines, a chain of Thursdays running unbroken through the entire history you are lying inside of. 13 poor women are brought into the hall, 13 for the table in the upper room. Your almoner has chosen them from the town below the walls and the parishes around, widows mostly, the old and the worn, and they have been, this is the practical mercy nobody paints, fed first and warmed, because you cannot ask a starving woman to sit still through a ceremony. They sit on a bench along the dais, 13 women in their patched best, terrified, thrilled, some of them older than the castle's newest tower, and their feet, washed once already by the almoner's staff for decency, weight bare on the cold stone, and you kneel down in front of them, on the floor, in your finest gown, deliberately your finest, that is the point. The silk and the fur down on the flags where the dogs go, and a linen towel girded around your waist like a servant's, and a silver basin of warm water scented with the last of the winter's rosemary, and you take the first foot in your 2 hands. It is an old woman's foot, and I want you to hold it with her, because your hands have held everything else today. It is light, lighter than a foot should be, the bones close under the skin like the frame of a bird. The skin is cold on top and leathery beneath, the soul a single continuous callus, 60 years of roads worn into it, cracked at the heel in dry white seams. The toes are bent where a lifetime of bad shoes bent them, the nails thick and yellowed as horn. This foot has walked to market 4,000 times. It has stood in a gleaning field every August since before your father was born. It has been colder than yours has ever once been. Every winter, all winter, its whole life. You pour the warm water over it and hold it and wash it gently, thoroughly, with your own 2 bruised hands, and dry it in the linen, and then, this is the custom, you bend and kiss the instep, and you feel the woman's whole leg trembling, and you look up and she is crying, silently, hopelessly, mortified, trying to stop and failing, and she's not crying because it is the Queen, or not only. She is crying because it is warm water, and hands taking care, and no one has touched her with care in, you would guess from her face, and you make yourself complete the guess, years. 13 times, 13 feet, each its own biography, each washed, dried, kissed. And to each woman afterward, the Maundy gift, and here is your own quiet amendment to the custom, made 11 years ago and kept since. The ceremony calls for coins, and coins they get, in a purse, publicly. But into each purse your almoner has also put what you actually looked into their cases and found wanting. An order for firewood for one, rent forgiven for another, a place in the almshouse for the eldest who is sleeping, your almoner discovered, in her son-in-law's byre. The Chronicle, if it mentions this day at all, will say the Queen made her Maundy. The byre will not be in it. The byre is never in it. You have stopped expecting the byre to be in it, and you keep the list yourself. And kneeling there on the stones with the 11th foot in your hands and your knees past, complaining into open rebellion, and the whole hall watching the world stand on its head, you understand the ceremony the way you understand it fresh each year, which is, it is not humility, or not the way it looks. It is a diagram. Once a year, the machine you sit on top of is taken apart in public, and everyone is shown the parts, and the Queen on her knees with a widow's foot in her lap is the machine confessing, out loud, in the oldest language it has, what everyone spends the other 364 days agreeing not to say, that the pyramid is people all the way down, and the ones at the bottom are carrying it, and the crown knows. Whether the crown remembers on Friday is another matter. You try to be a crown that remembers. The list of buyers is how you try. Easter itself breaks over the castle 3 days later like weather. The fast of 40 days ending all at once. The chapel blazing with every candle the wax accounts will bear. The Alleluia let out of its Lenten cage, and then the feast, eggs by the 100, blessed and given, dyed red in onion skins, the kitchen in glory, the first meat since Ash Wednesday, hitting 200 pallets at once with an effect you can hear, and the whole stone machine, for one loud bright day, purely and simply happy. And there is one more small scene from that week that the rolls will keep no trace of, and it is yours, listener, before the year runs on. Easter Monday, and the weather turns kind, and you steal. There's no other honest word, an afternoon. You take the falcon out, not a formal hawking party, no ladies, no picnic hampers, just you and the falconer and Alice and 2 grooms, up onto the down above the river, where the wind comes clean across 3 counties, and the turf is short and starred with the first daisies, and gives under the mare's feet like a held breath. And you unhood her, and she looks at the enormous day with one eye and then the other, and you cast her off your fist, and she goes up. And this exact thing, is why the falcon, and not the jewels, not the gowns, not anything else you own. Because she climbs the spring air in wide hunting rings, higher, higher, until she's a thought at the top of the sky, and everything you spend every waking hour being watched, weighed, sealed, held, none of it can follow her up there. She is yours, and she is completely free, both at once, which is a thing you have otherwise only heard of in sermons. The wind pours past your ears. The river lies across the vale like a dropped ribbon. Somewhere below the hill, invisible, ordinary, the whole kingdom is getting on with its Monday. The falconer serves the lure. She stoops, and you have seen it 1,000 times, and it has never once become ordinary. The shape of her folding, the fall like a decision, the sound when she cuts past of the air itself being torn a little, and she takes the lure in a burst of feathers and sits on it in the daisies, mantling, glaring, magnificent, entirely unimpressed by everyone present, including you. You get down and go to her yourself, which the falconer permits because he gave up arguing years ago, and kneel in the turf in your riding clothes, and she steps to your glove, 2 pounds of murder balancing with absolute delicacy, and eats from your fingers in the wind and the sun. The falcon still comes to no one else. That was true when you said it, and it is true on this hillside, and a man 90 miles south who once could not coax her out of a pear tree knows exactly how true, and that sentence is at this moment somewhere on the south road in a courier's satchel, riding toward him. You stay on the hill until the light goes long, then the hood, the glove, the mare, the down falling away behind you, the castle rising ahead with its banner stirring, its smoke standing up from the kitchens, its 200 souls, its rolls, its stares, its watching, waiting, entire wait. You ride back into it at a walk, in your own time, and take it up again at the gate, the way you take it up every day, the way everyone you have met today takes up theirs, because that is the secret you carry down off the hill, the one the falcon teaches and the Maundy teaches and the birth chamber taught in the hardest school of all. Nobody in this world is exempt, and nobody is carried, and the whole vast, creaking, beautiful machine runs on people taking it up again at the gate. And there is a strange, deep, load-bearant peace in that, if you stand where you can see it. Everyone's hands are full, yours too. You're in the oldest company there is. After the king's men ride south again, the year opens up and swallows the days, and you should see how a queen's year actually moves, because the shape of it will not be what you expect. May, and the sheep shearing washes across your 9 counties like a second harvest, the one that pays for everything else, and the wool clip comes into your receivers in great tarred sarplers, each one the weight of 2 men, and the Italian buyers come up from London with their letters of credit and their beautiful manners and their scales that you have learned over 11 years to have checked by your own man before a single fleece is weighed. June, and the household migrates again, eastward this time, 3 days on the road, and the whole disassembly and reassembly of your world happens again. The bed, the chapel, the rolls, and you sleep in 3 different beds that are all the same bed, the hay harvest, and then the terrifying gap of high summer that the whole kingdom holds its breath through. The hungry weeks when last year's grain runs low, and this year's is still green in the ear, and the price of bread in the markets climbs week by week, and you order your granaries opened on 2 manors where the spring was wet, sold at the old price, not given, sold. Because your grandmother taught you that charity feeds a village for a week, and a held price feeds it for a season, and Simon winces at the margin and enters it anyway. August, and the harvest proper, the whole world out in the fields from grey light to dark, and even your own household thins as men are loose to their home parishes for it, because harvest overrules everything. Harvest is the actual king. You ride out one evening to watch the last of the wheat come off your domain at the home manor, and the stubble is gold and sharp, crunching under the horses, and the air is all dust and chaff, a dry, glittering fog that coats your lips and turns the low sun to a red coal, and the loaded wains sway home along the lanes like drunk cathedrals, and behind the last one the whole field walks singing, and the reeve, not Walter, another one, an honest one, brings you the harvest garland, plaited straw and poppies, and you take it from his hands, and the whole field cheers, and this exact ritual, lady and straw and cheering, is older than the kingdom, older than the language, older than anyone can say, and standing in it you can feel the age of it under your feet like a floor. Michaelmas, and the accounting year turns over, and for 2 weeks you and Simon live inside the rolls entirely, every manor, every reeve, every penny, the year audited shut, and this year, this 1 year, the numbers come in penny true across all 9 counties, and Simon permits himself the hawk beak mark of approval in the margin of the final roll, and you permit yourself 1 cup of the good Gascon unwatered. And you notice somewhere in there that the letter from the south has stopped visiting you at night. Held things stay held, mostly, once everyone has watched you hold them. November, and your son comes. For Christmas, his household's yours, agreed by letters through the autumn, and he arrives on a grey afternoon riding his own pony, 7 years old now, in a small fur-lined hood, escorted like a treaty, and when they lift him down in your courtyard he remembers his bow. He has been practising his bow. You can see the practice in it, and then he abandons the bow entirely and runs the last 5 steps, and you're down on your knees on the cobbles in 15 pounds of wool, with your arms full of cold, small boy before any part of you consults any other part, and the whole courtyard studies the sky. He smells of horse and wet wool, and underneath of himself, of the exact same scalp smell he had at 2, unchanged, and the recognizing of it goes through you like a blade going through a seam. He stays 5 weeks. You do the accounts every morning with him at the table's end, copying his letters, tongue out, and Simon, who to your certain knowledge has never smiled, teaches him to cut a pen. You take him up to the mews, and the falcon regards him, and he regards the falcon, and neither commits. He learns the 93 steps. He is afraid of the dark on the stair and pretends not to be, and you show him the trick your own mother showed you. Count them in 3s, and the counting keeps you company. Short, long, the cracked one. And by Christmas he takes them at a run in the black with his hand trailing the pillar, exactly where 10,000 hands have worn the stone faintly greasy, adding his 12th night, and the hall gets its one true feast of the year, boar's head and carols and the fire built recklessly high, and misrule for one evening, the boy who lies well, a year older now and a head taller and running messages like he was born in a saddlebag, is elected lord of the feast and governs the hall with a wooden spoon for a sceptre, and unseats precisely no real thing, which is the whole genius of the custom, and your son laughs himself into hiccups, and you sit under the canopy and watch your entire small country eat and shine and be, for one night, warm all the way through, and in January his household comes for him, as agreed, as written, as sealed, and you stand in the courtyard and watch him ride out the gate, turning twice to wave, and you keep your hand up until the road takes him, and then you go up the 93 steps and do the accounts, because the accounts are always there, and that is not the sad fact about them. That is the kind one. The winter closes in and does its winter things. The basin water freezes. You break it with your fist, the thin ice giving with a crunch like a bird's bone, the cold flaring up your wrist. Chilblains return to your fingers and toes, the itching burn of them at night, and the prioress's salve comes out again, rosemary and goose grease, the smell of it now permanently the smell of winter to you, as it will be for the rest of your life. The wolves are heard some nights, very far off, a sound like the cold itself practicing a song, and the watchman on the wall stamps his feet above your ceiling, and you send hot ale up to him at midnight all through the black months, and never once say so, and he never once thanks you, and every man in the garrison knows. And here is what the year has been teaching you, listener, and it is time to say it straight, because you have been living it since dawn, and you've earned the plain words. You began this night thinking, maybe, that a queen's life was the opposite of yours, the top of the pyramid, and now you have carried her day, the 15 pounds of it, the 93 steps of it, the 200 watching faces, the cold water, the stale bread, the letter with the courtesy and the crowbar, and you know the truth which is stranger. There was no one in her world who was carried. Not the widow, not the reeve, not the watchman, not the king with his empty war chest, not the woman under the canopy of a state. Every single soul in that stone machine woke in the cold and put on their day like layers, and carried their portion until dark, and the queen's portion was not lighter for being gilded. It was heavier, and it could never once be set down where anyone could see, and she carried it anyway, every day for years, in a world with no anaesthetic, no privacy, no retirement, and no applause. She got up at the shutter's bang and was built by other hands into a public object, and went down the cold stairs and held what was hers. You come from those people. Whatever your name is, wherever you are lying right now in the warm dark with a voice in your ears, you descend from 30 generations of people who woke cold and worked to the rind and held their small holdings against the constant weather of the world, and every one of them, every single one, ended every one of those days the same way you are about to end this one. They lay down, they let go of it, and they slept. So, come back down now, one last time, to a single night, an ordinary one, deep in that winter, and stay with her while she ends it, because the ending of her day is the ending of yours. The hall has emptied by rank. The fire in the centre of the floor is banked under its curfew. The great iron dome, couvre-feu, cover the fire, the word your language will wear down into curfew and forget the shape of, and the last light in the hall is the red seam glowing around its rim, breathing slightly like something asleep. Up the stairs. Short, short, long. The cracked one, the one that tips. Her hand on the pillar, on the greasy stripe of 10,000 hands, her son's now among them. 93, and her knees speak on 30 of them, and she lets them, because there is no one on the stair to be the queen for. The chamber. The fire banked here too, red-hearted, ticking. The rushlight. One small flame with its thread of black smoke and its smell of burning fat. And the hands, one more time, Matilda's and Alice's, undoing the day, the veil lifting away, the fillet, the barbette from under her jaw, and the skin there breathing again, the pins coming out of her hair one by one, each a small specific release she feels at the root, and then the braids unwound and the comb going through, long strokes from Alice's arm, the crackle of it loud in the quiet, and her scalp loosening under it degree by degree the way ice loosens off a roof, and her eyes closing on their own by the fourth stroke. Every night, 11 years, the fourth stroke. The belt with the knife and the keys and the seals, lifted away and hung where it hangs, her legal self on a hook until morning. The surcoat over Alice's arm, the gown, the stockings, the garters, the day dismantled in reverse order of its building, laid in the chest with lavender between the folds, and she stands finely in linen only and weighs nothing, and the cold takes its one free shot at her through the thin cloth, and she takes the 3 fast steps and is into the bed, into the curtained cave under the furs and the sheets. Do the thing they do every night of her life and yours, cold as still water first, then slowly, slowly, hers. Matilda's voice through the curtain, the last accounting, shorter in winter, all fast, all well, the gates are barred. Good night, my lady. Good night, Matilda. The pinch of the rushlight, the dark complete. Alice and the truckle bed, 2 rustles and a sigh, and then her breathing finding its night rhythm, young and even. The fire ticking down through its small red arguments. The wind working at the horn pane, a soft finger in sound, trying the same corner it tries every night, getting nowhere, and overhead, faint through the floor of heaven, the watchman. Step, 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 turn. A man walking back and forth above her ceiling all night, all winter, every winter, so that she may close her eyes, and hot ale in him at midnight, and both of them keeping their halves of a bargain neither has ever spoken aloud. She goes through the day one last time in the dark because she is who she is. The roles are true. The boy's letter is in the chest, the one where every word slopes uphill. The loan terms are sealed. The wolves are far. Her hands ache at the thumbs in the old familiar places, and she folds them under the fur and lets them. Item by item she puts the day down, and you can put yours down too now. You have been carrying it all this time, listener, alongside hers, your own version of it, whatever it held, the small crowbars and the small holdings, the things you counted and the things you kept. Set it where she sets hers. It will all still be there in the morning. The accounts are always there. That is the kind fact, not the sad one. The sounds of her world grow fainter, or maybe she's just listening less. The wind, the fire's last tick, the step overhead, slower now, or farther, or only quieter, the way everything goes at the edge, when the body has been used all the way to its rind, and the mind finally stops presenting items. Centuries will pass. The castle will crack open to the sky, and sheep will graze the great hall, and children on summer evenings will climb the broken stair, short, long, the cracked one, without ever knowing why the steps are uneven, and stand where the canopy of a state hung and shout to hear their own echo. The rolls will sleep in archives, and one line in a chronicle will say the Queen made a progress of her lands, and everything true about the fortnight will have fallen through the floorboards of history, along with the smell of rosemary and goose grease, the weight of a falcon on a wrist, the word for father written sloping uphill. But people will still lie down at night with the day still moving in their hands, still break the ice on cold mornings one way or another, and carry what is theirs until dark and hold it mostly, and lose some of it, and go on. Still listen, at the very edge of sleep, for the step of whoever it is that watches, so they don't have to. Some things don't change. The tired body doesn't change. The need to be, for a few hours, no one's queen and no one's servant, nobody's anything, just a warm shape in the dark, that doesn't change either. You're warm enough now, tired enough, safe enough. You have a roof, and this voice, and the whole slow night ahead of you. And that's more than most of the 30 generations behind you ever had at once. That's enough. It's enough. It is enough. So let it come. Let sleep take you the way it took her 779 winters ago, behind the curtains, under the firs, with the watchman keeping his half of the bargain overhead. Let the castle fade. Let the wind quiet. Let the last few thoughts slow and soften and come apart and finally stop. Tomorrow there will be the accounts again. Tomorrow there will be the cold basin and the stairs and the weight that goes on with the morning. But that's tomorrow. That is entirely, completely tomorrow. Right now there is only this, the dark, the warmth rising around you like still water, the breathing of the sleeping house. Put it all down. You held what was yours today. Good night.